Thank you, Madam Chair. In my opening statement, I stressed transparency and accountability. To me, those have to be the underpinnings of anything that works to where it's going to be responsible to someone. So I'm worried that in what I've read in terms of what might happen, and I'm referring to what occurred under the Trump administration, the EEOC created transparency and accountability by requiring commissioners to vote on whether or not to commence litigation and by posting those votes online. And there's a new discussion out there that if you're confirmed, the EEOC will put the authority to commence litigation in the hands of the general counsel, and more alarming than that, no longer require public voting. Simple question, will you commit to keeping the measures in place that require commissioners to review and approve the majority of litigation and then post these votes online?
Senator, I think transparency is an incredibly important value, and I look forward to learning more from my fellow commissioners if I'm so fortunate as to be confirmed. I understand that the Commission has had a track record of delegating some litigation authority to the General Counsel, and that there are certain areas, including novel areas of law and areas that would involve substantial outlay of the Commission's resources with respect to litigation, where the commissioners do play an important role in approving litigation.
So you said you definitely support transparency and I assume accountability as well. Are you willing now to say that you'd keep that? Because it's hard for me to imagine how there could be any benefit to taking that away. And it shouldn't be just because it occurred under a different administration, because I've never really observed much that works well in the long run that doesn't keep as much transparency at play as possible.
I agree. Transparency is an important value. It's an area that I would be absolutely willing to learn more about if I'm so fortunate as to be confirmed, including from your office and your staff, Senator.
Very good. We'll continue that conversation down the road. These measures, when it comes to small business especially, I'm concerned that you need to keep in mind, and I said that in my opening statement as well, that whatever you do, I hearken back to 08, 09, Dodd-Frank, and the number of community banks and small banks that had none of the behavior that the largest banks had that took us into that free fall, but they ended up with the consequences. And in many cases, not having the administrative staff or the ability to spread the overhead that rules and regs came out of, and it was dispensed with kind of a one-size-fits-all. I'm concerned that whatever happens in terms of some of the things that are being talked about, that it'll accentuate that burden on small business. Do you think it's valid to differentiate between where most of these problems might be, similar to in the budget hearing that I was part of last week, when Amazon was being talked about, 150% turnover rate, an accident rate way above the norm. That's one thing. That's not typical of most small businesses, especially ones that have been run by families for a long time. Is that a fair distinction to make, or do you think whatever happens should be one size fits all regardless of your size and your behavior?
It has certainly been my experience that most employers are working to get it right for their employees, that most employers are interested in following the law. I think that was certainly something you and I chatted about last week, and I think that's an incredibly important, certainly consistent with my experience. I think it is important to ensure that all workers are protected from discrimination in the workplace, and that the approach to those issues must be consistent across workplaces. Having said that, I think that there may be different tools that should be considered, and I would be very interested in hearing all perspectives with respect to any issues as they may relate to business and to workers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kane.